So picture this. You're standing in a high-stakes boardroom meeting.
Oh, wow. The absolute worst place for this to happen.
Right. Or maybe you're at a really bustling professional networking event, or like a sophisticated dinner party. You're holding a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. You're feeling perfectly capable.
As you should.
Exactly. You know exactly what you want to say in your native language. You are articulate. You're sharp. You're a respected expert in your field.
Yeah.
The thoughts are fully formed, queued up in your mind, ready to be delivered. You've got the data, the insight, the punchline.
Yep.
And then the person across from you asks a question. You make eye contact.
Yeah.
You open your mouth to respond in English, and nothing.
Just blank.
Completely, terrifyingly blank. It literally feels like someone reached the back of your skull and just yanked the power cord right out of a wall.
Yeah.
Your brain is unplugged.
It is absolute system failure. And what is so striking about that moment isn't just the silence, it's the intense, immediate isolation you feel.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you could be in a room surrounded by 50 people, but in that microsecond of silence, you feel entirely alone, just scrambling in the dark.
Scrambling is the perfect word for it.
Yeah.
Because you are frantically grasping for vocabulary that you know for a fact you memorized years ago.
Right. It's in there somewhere.
It is. And the scariest part is the immediate internal monologue that kicks in. You start thinking, am I really this bad? Why can't I just formulate a simple sentence? I learned this grammar rule in high school.
Yeah, the self-doubt is instantaneous.
It really is. To really ground this, I want to share a story from our source material today for this deep dive. It's about a professional named Mike, and I think his experience is going to resonate deeply with anyone listening to this.
Oh, Mike's story is just, it hurts to read.
It really does. So Mike is a senior architect.
Yeah.
He has 15 years of experience specifically designing complex, sustainable, environmentally friendly buildings. He is a literal master of his craft.
A total expert.
Yeah. So Mike is at this international dinner party, seated next to a marketing executive. They're making small talk. She turns to him and asks the most basic, standard networking question of all time. What do you do for a living?
Which is the ultimate softball question. I mean, he knows the answer to this better than anyone on the planet.
Exactly. In his native language, Mike could give you a passionate, brilliant, nuanced hour-long lecture on green architecture. He had a whole sophisticated answer ready in his head.
Right.
But the pressure hit. The English switch flipped. And what actually came out of his mouth was this, I make building green the nature, just those broken, fragmented words.
I make building green the nature. That is brutal.
It is.
Because you can hear the ghost of the complex thought he was trying to convey, but the execution just completely betrays his actual intellect.
It totally betrays it. And the aftermath was awful. The woman smiled politely, nodded, and then just turned away to talk to someone else. Yeah. Mike just sat there. He noted in the source material that he felt like the least intelligent person in the room. He felt like a toddler who was just learning to speak.
Which is such a common feeling.
It is. The experience was so deeply humiliating that he actually left the dinner party early. And this is the part that really hurts to read. He actively avoided speaking English in professional settings for an entire year after that night.
Wow. An entire year.
Yeah.
That avoidance behavior is the real tragedy of the story, because what Mike experienced and what you listening to this have very likely experienced in your own life is not a failure of intelligence.
Not at all.
And our mission in this deep dive is to completely dismantle that feeling of failure. We are going to structure a highly specific, practical action plan for you to move from that initial agonizing panic to confident owning the room fluency.
Yes.
We are going to destroy the IQ myth of language learning. We're going to unpack the exact literal brain mechanics of why we freeze.
The science behind the fog.
Exactly. And we'll provide a concrete toolkit of 10 stalling phrases you can practice to conquer that mental block for good.
I love that. When I was going through the research for this, I really found myself wanting to just reach through the pages, act as a supportive coach, and tell every beginner or intermediate student of English, your brain isn't broken.
It really isn't.
If you take nothing else away from our conversation today, let it be this core thesis. When you freeze up, your brain is doing exactly what it was designed by human evolution to do. It is trying to protect you.
Yep.
But today, we're going to teach you how to tell your brain to stand down.
We need to start by looking at what makes adult language learning so uniquely painful compared to when we're young. Like, why is it that a 5-year-old child can move to a new country, enroll in kindergarten, and pick up the language fearlessly?
Making mistakes left and right.
Exactly, making mistakes constantly, while a 35-year-old senior executive is absolutely terrified of using the wrong verb tense?
It's a huge difference.
It comes down to a psychological concept called the language ego.
Okay, this concept blew my mind because it explains so much of the friction. When we are children, our ego, our sense of self, our identity is not tethered to our vocabulary.
Right.
If a 4-year-old points at a horse and calls it a big dog, everyone laughs, the kid laughs, they eventually learn the word horse and they move on.
Hmm.
There is zero shame attached to the error.
But as adults, our entire sense of self-worth, our carefully curated professional identity, and our perceived intelligence are deeply, inextricably connected to how we communicate.
Yes, our words are our currency.
Exactly. If you are a senior manager, an architect like Mike, a doctor, or an engineer, your value in the marketplace is fundamentally tied to your ability to articulate complex strategies, persuade other people, and lead discussions.
So wait, if I'm understanding the implication here, when an adult is suddenly stripped of that verbal currency,
Yeah.
when they are reduced to saying a fragmented sentence like Mike did,
Huh.
the brain doesn't just see it as a minor grammar mistake.
No, it absolutely doesn't. Your brain interprets this sudden inability to express yourself as a literal existential threat to your identity.
Wow. Your subconscious is basically screaming, if I cannot communicate my value, I have no value. And this creates an immediate, massive mental block. It is a protective wall that slams down to shield the ego from further damage.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the physical reaction. I want to talk about the tiny, almond-shaped culprit sitting deep inside the temporal lobe of your brain, the amygdala.
Yes, let's get into the amygdala.
Let's simplify the science of brain fog for a minute, especially if you're a new student of English who just feels overwhelmed by all of this biology. The amygdala is your brain's primal, ancient alarm system.
It's very old hardware.
Right. Its one and only job is to constantly scan your environment for danger and trigger a fight or flight response to keep you alive.
If we look at the evolutionary biology here, the amygdala evolved millions of years ago to protect us from predators. It is incredibly fast. Super fast.
It can trigger a physiological reaction before your conscious rational mind even registers what is happening. But here is the biological mismatch we are dealing with in the modern world. The amygdala is incredibly fast, but it is deeply unsophisticated.
It's a blunt instrument.
It's a completely blunt instrument. It literally cannot distinguish between a physical threat to your life and a social threat to your ego.
Okay, that is wild.
It does not know the difference between a venomous snake slithering through the grass toward you and a judgmental colleague looking at you while you struggle to remember the past participle of an irregular verb.
That seems like a massive evolutionary flaw. You're saying my brain thinks forgetting a word is the equivalent of a tiger attack.
To the amygdala, the stakes feel exactly the same. Mortal danger.
Unbelievable.
Because throughout human history, being socially rejected or looking incompetent in front of the tribe meant you might be cast out, and being cast out meant death.
So it is survival.
Exactly. So when that social pressure hits, when the woman at the dinner party turns and asks Mike what he does, the amygdala sounds the alarm. And it triggers what psychologists and neuroscientists call an amygdala hijack.
I love the term hijack because it implies a hostile takeover. When I was reading this, the analogy that came to mind was bringing an industrial fire extinguisher to a spelling bee.
Yes.
It is a massive, catastrophic, biological overreaction to the actual problem in front of you.
The fire extinguisher analogy is actually perfect because during an amygdala hijack, the emotional, survival-focused part of your brain literally steals control away from the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part we need to speak English.
Right. The prefrontal cortex is the rational, high-level language processing center of your brain. It's where your grammar rules live.
Okay.
But when the alarm goes off, your biology physically changes in a fraction of a second. Blood flow is aggressively redirected away from the areas you need for complex thought, and it's pushed toward your extremities, your arms and legs for fighting or running.
So you're literally losing blood flow to your language center.
Exactly. And on top of that, stress hormones, specifically cortisol and adrenaline, absolutely flood your central nervous system.
So that explains the physical symptoms. That's why your palms start sweating, your heart rate spikes, and your breathing gets shallow.
Yep, you're preparing for battle.
And the result of that biological cocktail on your speech is literal brain fog. When you are standing there at that networking event, worrying about making a mistake, your brain genuinely believes you are fighting for your life.
It really does.
That is why the words feel blurry. That's why your thoughts feel like they're moving through molasses.
Yeah.
You are not stupid. You are experiencing an acute, involuntary biological stress response.
This is why slowing down, which we will detail later with our action plan of stalling phrases, is one of the only ways to signal to the amygdala that there is no predator in the room.
Right, you have to prove you're safe.
Exactly. This is also why simple, intentional breathing exercises pair so effectively with verbal stalling techniques. A deep, controlled breath physically counteracts that adrenaline rush.
Okay, so a deep breath literally changes your biology.
It does. It manually lowers your heart rate, which sends a biological signal back up the vagus nerve to the brain saying, "We are safe. You can turn the alarm off. Give me back my vocabulary."
Okay, so the alarm is ringing, the fog has rolled in, and the fire extinguisher is spraying everywhere.
Sounds messy.
It is. But how does this physical panic specifically destroy your ability to retrieve English words? Why doesn't it shut down my ability to, say, recognize a face or read a sign?
That's a great question.
To understand that, we need to look at what the research calls the double threat, the affective filter, and cognitive overload.
This brings us to the foundational work of Stephen Krashen, a highly influential linguist and educational researcher. He introduced a concept known as the affective filter.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's huge in language learning. I want you to imagine a literal, invisible filter or screen sitting right at the gateway of your language processing center.
Okay, picturing it.
When you experience negative emotions like acute anxiety, a fear of judgment, self-doubt, or deep embarrassment, this filter goes up. It becomes thick, rigid, and impenetrable.
Wow.
And when the affective filter is high, it blocks language from either entering your brain to be absorbed or exiting your brain to be spoken.
This explains a phenomenon that drives so many language learners crazy. It is the exact reason why you can read a perfectly written, complex email in English or sit quietly at your desk and write a brilliant, error-free report. But the second you have to speak in a meeting, you freeze.
Because the filter is activated.
Let's look at the sources analogy here because I think it paints the picture perfectly.
Mm.
Having a high affective filter is like having a massive, beautifully curated library inside your head. You have studied English for years.
Right, you've put in the work.
You have tens of thousands of vocabulary words neatly sitting on the shelves. The grammar rules are all perfectly categorized. The books are there. But when the anxiety hits and the amygdala fires, it is like someone walked into your library and flipped the main circuit breaker. All the lights turn off.
Pitch black.
Pitch black. You are standing in the dark.
Right.
You know the exact book you need is on the shelf right in front of you, but you literally cannot read the spine to find it.
And the reason writing that email at your desk feels perfectly safe is because your affective filter is sitting at 0. There is no live audience.
No one is staring at you.
Exactly. No one is staring at your mouth waiting for the end of the sentence. You aren't managing tone of voice or body language. You have the ultimate luxury time.
Right.
You can edit, you can hit backspace, you can open a new tab and consult a dictionary. Speaking live, face-to-face, instantly spikes the filter. And this is where the second part of the double threat enters the equation, cognitive load.
Cognitive load. Let's break this down. When you speak your native language, the cognitive load, the amount of active mental effort required, is incredibly low.
Almost 0.
Yeah. You don't consciously think about subject-verb agreement. You don't think about where your tongue needs to be placed behind your teeth to make a thruth sound. It is entirely on autopilot.
But speaking a second language, especially under the pressure of a professional or social environment, is a completely different neurological event. You are asking your brain's working memory to juggle multiple, highly complex tasks simultaneously.
Like what?
Well, you are actively managing word choice.
Yeah.
You are translating abstract thoughts. You are ensuring correct tense. You are actively monitoring your physical pronunciation. And perhaps most exhaustingly, you are self-monitoring to see if the listener's facial expressions indicate that they are judging you.
Oh my gosh. It's like trying to run 5 massive, heavy video editing software programs on a 10-year-old laptop all at exactly the same time.
That's exactly what it's like.
You hear the internal fan start screaming, the mouse freezes on the screen, and then boom, the blue screen of death. The whole system crashes.
Yep.
Your fluency collapses, not because you don't know the language, but because you are simply demanding too much of the machine all at once.
If we look closely at working memory, it is a very limited mental space used for real-time processing. It's the RAM of your brain.
Okay, the RAM.
When the effective filter is high and the amygdala is sounding the alarm with cortisol, that working memory is already severely compromised. Add the immense cognitive load of a second language on top of that, and system failure is practically inevitable.
I want the listener to actually feel this right now.
Right.
We're going to do a quick organic exercise based on the source material to test this cognitive load.
Let's do it.
Let's call it pressure test 1. I'm going to challenge you directly. I want you to imagine you are at a networking event. A potential client walks up to you, shakes your hand, and asks what you do. You have exactly 10 seconds right now, out loud, wherever you are listening to this, in your car, making breakfast, walking the dog, to describe your job to someone who knows absolutely nothing about it. Ready? Go.
See how fast the brain scrambles?
It's crazy. Okay, time's up. How did that feel? If you're like most people, you probably felt a spike in your heart rate. Did you freeze? Did you scramble for the right noun?
Let's analyze the likely failure points from that very brief 10-second pressure test. Why does a seemingly simple task, something you do every day, cause the system to crash?
There are 3 main culprits, right?
Yes. The first is perfectionism. In those 10 seconds, you likely did not just open your mouth and start talking, you waited.
Ah, yes.
You held your breath and searched your mental library for the perfect opening sentence, the absolute best, most impressive vocabulary word to encapsulate your role. And while you were hunting for perfection, the clock ran out.
Perfection is the absolute enemy of fluency. Waiting for the perfect sentence is a trap. The second failure point is translation mode.
Oh, this one is huge.
Instead of thinking natively in English, your brain likely formed the brilliant idea in your native language, your L1, and then desperately tried to run a real-time translation into English, your L2.
Which takes so much energy.
Doing live, simultaneous translation requires a massive amount of cognitive load. Professional UN interpreters train for years to do that, and they work in pairs, taking shifts because it exhausts the human brain so quickly, you simply ran out of processing power.
And the third failure point is self-monitoring. Even if you did manage to get a few words out in those 10 seconds, a distinct part of your brain was standing outside of yourself, watching and critiquing.
Did I pronounce that vowel right?
Was that the correct preposition? I sound foolish right now. This constant self-monitoring creates a catastrophic feedback loop of anxiety. The anxiety spikes the affective filter, which in turn further reduces your working memory. You end up fighting a war against your own biology.
But wait, if thinking too much causes the system to crash, how on earth do fluent native speakers do it? Are they just walking around with supercomputers for brains?
Not at all.
Is their processing speed just inherently faster?
Yeah.
This brings us to a massive paradigm shift. We have to destroy the IQ myth.
We absolutely must dismantle the idea that language fluency is a measure of inherent intelligence. It is one of the most toxic, paralyzing, and factually incorrect beliefs an adult learner can hold.
So true.
Language fluency is not a cognitive test of your IQ. It is fundamentally a motor skill. It relies heavily on motor memory.
I need to stop you there because that sounds counterintuitive. A motor skill, like swinging a tennis racket or typing on a keyboard without looking at the keys.
Yeah.
You're saying speaking a language is physical.
Precisely. Let's simplify the neuroscience here. When you hear a fluent native speaker effortlessly navigating a complex, fast-paced conversation, they're not accessing a higher, more elite level of intellect. They are not brilliantly solving complex grammar equations in real time in their prefrontal cortex. What they actually have is 30 years of daily, continuous, effortless physical practice. They have logged millions and millions of repetitions, moving their jaw, tongue, and vocal cords in specific patterns.
Millions of reps. Think about the bicycle analogy from the research. Remember when you first learned to ride a bike? It was terrifying.
Yeah, totally unnatural.
You had to consciously, actively think about pedaling with your feet, balancing your core weight, steering with your hands, and looking ahead, all at the exact same time.
Yeah.
The cognitive load was exhausting.
Exhausting.
But eventually, after enough wobbling, falling, and getting back up, your brain's physical neural pathways automated those specific movements. You stop thinking about it. Now you just get on the bike and go.
The neuroscience of speaking a language is the exact same process. Building motor pathways in the brain, literally wrapping neural connections in a substance called myelin to make them fire faster, requires massive repetition.
Okay,
Yes, and this repetition builds what neuroscientists call automaticity. When a physical or mental process becomes automatic, it bypasses the heavy conscious working memory entirely.
which is exactly what I want.
Automaticity drastically reduces your cognitive load. And when the cognitive load drops, your brain doesn't feel overwhelmed, it doesn't feel threatened, and that prevents the amygdala from firing and the affective filter from activating.
So let's reframe Mike's catastrophic failure at the dinner party.
Yeah.
And let's reframe your past failures, listener. That awkward conversation last week where you stumble, lost your train of thought, and used the wrong word wasn't proof of your stupidity.
No, not at all.
It wasn't evidence that you should just give up and stick to emails. It was a neurological workout.
That is a profound mindset shift. In fact, I want you to write this down as a daily positive affirmation to completely shift your perspective on making language errors.
Yes, write this down.
Repeat this to yourself. Discomfort is the literal feeling of brain growth. When your brain is straining to find a word, when you feel that friction, it is actively building a new neural pathway. If you retreat into silence to protect your ego, that pathway dies.
Think about a concert pianist. If they are practicing a complex Beethoven sonata and they play one wrong note, do they slam the piano shut, declare they are an idiot, and vow to never play in public again?
Of course not.
They play the measure again. They log another rep. They build the motor or pathway.
Yeah.
As a language learner, you must normalize mistakes. Silence is the ultimate enemy of fluency.
Absolutely.
Every single time you speak an imperfect sentence, you are laying down another brick on the road to automaticity.
Normalizing those errors is exactly how you overcome the fear of judgment. You are quite literally training your brain, through exposure, to decouple the act of speaking English from the primal fear of social exile.
Wow.
You are teaching your amygdala, slowly but surely, that a grammar mistake is not a lion.
Okay, so we understand that repetition is the cure, and we know that we need to build motor memory to achieve automaticity. But we also know that real life isn't always simple.
Unfortunately not.
Some situations demand significantly more cognitive power than others. Talking about my morning routine is one thing, but what happens when the conversation gets deep? Let's look at the ultimate brain breaker, the abstract challenge.
This is where we see the rubber really meet the road. If talking about your job felt slightly stressful, this next exercise is going to demonstrate exactly why certain types of conversations cause an immediate catastrophic panic response.
All right, listener, are you ready? I'm going to give you 10 seconds again. I want you to answer this question out loud. Do you think social media makes society more connected or more lonely, and why? Go.
That's a huge question.
It really is. Okay, stop. I am guessing that felt absolutely brutal compared to the first test. Why does a question like that feel so much heavier, so much more impossible than simply explaining what you do for a living?
It comes down to the fundamental difference in how the brain processes concrete versus abstract concepts. Concrete questions like your job title, your morning routine, what you had for breakfast, or giving directions to the train station utilize highly practiced automated vocabulary.
Right.
You have had those specific conversations hundreds, maybe thousands of times. The motor memory is incredibly strong.
Okay.
But abstract questions, topics involving society, ethics, philosophy, deep emotional states, or projecting future business trends rely on vocabulary and grammatical structures that are rarely used and therefore not fully automated.
When you hit an abstract topic, the cognitive load explodes exponentially. And here is the real kicker. You are forcing your brain to run two massive, distinct mental processes at the exact same time.
Which is so hard.
First, you're trying to form an original, nuanced opinion about a complex sociological issue. Second, you are trying to translate and produce that opinion in a second language.
It is an incredible demand on your executive function. You are simultaneously trying to act as a philosopher, generating new ideas, and an interpreter translating those ideas, all under a ticking clock while someone stares at you.
I think we are so incredibly unfair to ourselves. We expect to be able to instantly debate the sociological impacts of Instagram in a second language perfectly without a single hesitation.
Right, which is absurd.
But think about it. If someone asked you that exact same question in your native language, you wouldn't instantly start talking at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You would pause.
Yeah, you take a breath.
You would look away. You would say, let me think about that. Or you would gaze off into the distance for a few seconds to gather your thoughts. Yet in English, we feel this immense crushing pressure to respond in 0.5 seconds, or we feel like total failures.
And this is exactly where the strategy comes in. When your brain is overloaded, when the topic is incredibly abstract, when your amygdala is screaming danger, and someone just asked you a tough, multi-layered question at a networking event, you cannot just try harder.
Trying harder just causes a crash.
Exactly. Trying harder just creates more cognitive load. You need a tactical intervention. You need an immediate survival tactic to buy your brain time.
Which brings us to the absolute core of our action plan today, the 10 stalling phrases toolkit. This is where we stop talking about the problem and give you the exact specific words to say when your brain is completely blank.
We are going to build what we call an emergency toolkit. These are 10 completely natural-sounding phrases that highly articulate native speakers use constantly.
All the time.
The sole purpose of these phrases is to buy you physical time while your brain loads the answer in the background, like a computer buffering a video.
And let's be explicitly clear, why using these phrases is infinitely better than resorting to silence, or those panicked, half-finished sentences like Mike's, "I make building green than nature."
Right, silence is dangerous here.
Stalling phrases signal 3 vital things to your listener. 1, I am fully engaged with you. 2, I am actively thinking about your question. And 3, I am confident enough to hold this conversational space without panicking.
Let's break these 10 phrases down into specific categories so you can build them into your daily action plan. We will look at their specific function, and we'll role-play how to use them so you can hear the natural tone, rhythm, and pacing.
Let's start with category 1, the acknowledgers. These are designed to buy you a quick 2 to 3 seconds immediately. Phrase 1. That's a tough one. Phrase 2. Let me think about that for a second. Why are these so effective right out of the gate?
They work brilliantly because they are honest. If a question is abstract, complex, or unexpected, explicitly acknowledging the difficulty validates the person who asked it, and it immediately gives you permission to pause.
Oh, that makes sense.
Imagine you are in a tense office meeting. Your manager turns to you and asks for a projection on how next quarter's unprecedented market shift will impact your specific department.
Yikes.
If you just stare blankly in silence, you look unprepared or lost. But if you lean back slightly in your chair, make direct eye contact, and calmly say, "That's a tough one, let me think about that for a second," you suddenly look thoughtful, measured, and highly authoritative. You are commanding the room by controlling the pace.
Wow. Okay, let's look at category 2, the flatterers. I
Mhm.
love these because they don't just buy time. They actively build a psychological connection with the listener. Phrase 3. That's actually a really interesting question. Phrase 9. I've never thought about it quite like that.
These are incredibly powerful in social scenarios, much like that dinner party Mike was at. Let's create a specific social scenario right now to see how this works.
Okay.
You are at a dinner party, the wine is flowing, everyone is relaxed, and someone turns to you and asks, if you could live in any historical era, which would it be and why?
Another abstract question.
Instead of panicking because your mind goes blank and you suddenly can't remember the English word for Renaissance or Industrial Revolution, you simply smile, nod slowly, and say, that's actually a really interesting question. I've never thought about it quite like that. Do you see what happens there?
The dynamic completely changes.
Yeah.
The listener suddenly feels incredibly smart and validated for asking such a great, thought-provoking question. Their ego is stroked.
Exactly.
Because you complimented them, they are now completely willing to patiently wait 5 or even 10 seconds for your answer, and all the conversational tension just vanishes. You are managing their psychology while saving your own processing power.
Exactly. Moving on to category 3, the intent signals. These are perfect for when you are actively searching for the right words, but you want to start the physical momentum of speaking to overcome the inertia of silence. Phrase 4, how do I put this? Phrase 8, from my perspective.
From my perspective, feels like a brilliant initiator, especially when you're trying to break into a group conversation at a networking event. If there are 4 people talking and you want to jump in, you don't need a fully formed, grammatically perfect thesis statement ready to go.
No, not at all.
You can just take a breath, step in, and say, from my perspective, and your brain will naturally rush to finish the sentence you just started. It forces you into forward motion.
It jumpstarts the engine.
And phrase 4, how do I put this, signals that you have a complex, highly nuanced idea, and you are just meticulously choosing the exact right vocabulary to express it properly. It makes you sound smarter, not weaker.
Now let's look at what is arguably the most important category for language learners. Category 4, the resets. These are absolute lifesavers when you are halfway through a sentence and you suddenly realize the grammar is completely falling apart and you are driving into a dead end.
I hate that feeling.
Phrase 5. Let me rephrase that. Phrase 6. In other words, phrase 7. What I'm trying to say is,
Let's actually role-play a messy mock job interview to see these resets in action. I'll be the interviewee and you be the hiring manager.
all right, so Looking at your resume, can you tell me about a time you overcame a major conflict with a team member on a tight deadline?
Yes, well, the team was very angry for the project, and the budget was, no, the time was, let me rephrase that. We had a strict deadline, and communication broke down. What I'm trying to say is, I organized a daily sync to align our goals.
Perfect execution. Notice what happened there. The initial sentence was totally broken. The team was very angry for the project. It was heading toward a grammar disaster.
It was bad.
But instead of freezing, instead of apologizing profusely or saying that dreaded phrase, sorry, my English is so bad, you deployed phrase 5. Let me rephrase that. And then you used phrase 7. What I'm trying to say is,
It gives you complete, unapologetic permission to scrap a bad sentence and start over gracefully. It completely removes the shame of a mistake.
yeah,
You are taking control of the edit in real time, just like a native speaker would when they lose their train of thought.
finally, we have category 5, the ultimate pause. Phrase 10. Bear with me, I want to get this right.
Oh, this is the heavy artillery. You use this when you genuinely need 5 to 10 full seconds to construct a highly complex thought. It signals deep care and respect.
It does.
It tells the listener, your question is so important and my answer is so valuable that I'm going to take my time. In a boardroom setting, a senior executive using this phrase commands absolute authority.
All right, you have the 10 phrases, you understand why they work, but just knowing them cognitively isn't enough. We have to bypass the working memory and build motor automaticity.
Right, the reps.
We need an action plan to practice these in daily life so they become an unconscious reflex. We are going to build a comprehensive multi-step training plan for you right now.
Let's get into the mechanics of this. Step 1 is your daily 15-minute drill. You cannot try to use these phrases for the first time when your amygdala is already firing at a networking event.
That will never work.
You must practice them in a zero-stress environment. I want you to schedule 15 minutes every single morning to recite these 10 phrases out loud. Stand in front of a mirror. Pay close attention to your body language.
Body language is key.
Keep your posture open, maintain imaginary eye contact with yourself, and practice saying them slowly and deliberately. Building the physical muscle memory of the jaw, tongue, and vocal cords is absolutely essential.
Step 2 is a 5-day challenge to integrate these phrases into informal phone calls. Phone calls are an excellent training ground because there is no visual judgment. You aren't looking at the other person's face, which lowers the effective filter slightly.
Oh, that's a great tip.
For day 1 and 2, pick just 2 phrases. Maybe that's a tough one, and let me think about that. Your goal is to use them naturally in a low-stakes call with a friend, a family member, or a highly supportive colleague.
Okay.
Day 3 and 4, add 2 more, perhaps. Let me rephrase that and from my perspective. Keep a notepad next to you and put a tally mark on the paper every time you successfully deploy one. Make it a game.
And to build this into a permanent long-term habit, step 3 is a 30-day habit tracker. Create a simple log on your computer or in a journal. Every single day, your goal is to record one real-world interaction where you successfully used a stalling phrase instead of freezing or reverting to your native language.
Writing it down makes it real.
But here is the most important part of the tracker. Create a column to track your self-reported social anxiety level from 1 to 10 during that specific interaction.
That anxiety tracking is crucial data. What you will find over the course of those 30 days is that as your usage of the phrases goes up, your self-reported social anxiety will progressively plummet. You will see the empirical evidence of your amygdala calming down.
I also want to give you a very simple 5-step mental checklist for applying these techniques in high-pressure social settings, like an industry conference or a major client dinner.
This checklist is gold.
Number 1, the exact moment you are asked the complex question, take one slow, intentional breath before you open your mouth.
Lower the heart rate.
Number 2, maintain positive, confident body language. Do not look down at the floor or cross your arms. Look directly at the speaker.
Show engagement.
Number 3, deploy a stalling phrase immediately before you even try to formulate the actual answer. Number 4, allow yourself to physically pause in the silence you just created. And number 5, deliver your answer, knowing that imperfect communication is a massive victory over silence.
Knowing the phrases is the mechanical step, but there is a profound psychological shift that happens inside your brain when you use them. We need to explore how intentional pausing is not just a language tool, but a highly effective biological regulation tactic.
Right.
When you say out loud, "That's a tough one," you are explicitly acknowledging a difficulty.
And in psychology, this is known as labeling. Neuroscience research shows that when you assign a word to an emotion or a challenge when you name it, you actively reduce the amygdala's response. The emotional center of the brain calms down when the rational center of the brain identifies and labels the problem. So saying that's an interesting question isn't just a clever conversational trick to buy time. It is a literal neurological hack to tell your brain's alarm system to turn off.
Let's contrast two very different kinds of silence to illustrate why this works. First, there is unintentional silence. This is the freeze response. This is Mike staring blankly at the marketing executive while his mind goes blank.
The bad silence.
Unintentional silence feels entirely out of your control. Your heart rate spikes, panic sets in, and the silence feels aggressive, heavy, and empty.
Right.
But then there is intentional silence. This is when you consciously use a phrase like, let me think about that for a second, and then you deliberately stop talking. You are claiming the pause. You own the silence.
Professional speakers, politicians, and great leaders use silence constantly to command authority and respect.
Oh.
A well-placed, intentional pause draws the audience in. It signals deep confidence.
It does.
When you own the silence, it actively lowers your affective filter. It gives your language centers the half-second they desperately need to catch up, clear the cognitive overload, and retrieve the right vocabulary word from the library.
Let's do one final exercise, pressure test 3, to prove this concept. I'm going to ask you a question, listener. But this time, before you answer, you must use one of the stalling phrases from your toolkit. Here's the challenge. If you could change one thing about the way English is taught in schools, what would it be?
Wow, okay.
Use the phrase. Say it out loud. That's a really interesting question. Let me think about that for a second. Now, feel the difference in your body compared to the first pressure test. The silence wasn't empty or terrifying.
It was filled with your intentionality.
Exactly. You were entirely in control of the pacing of the conversation.
We've given you the science, the biological tools, and the daily drills to survive the immediate panic of a blank mind. But to truly achieve long-term confidence and effortless fluency, we need to completely change how you view the people you are talking to. We need a massive paradigm shift.
This is the long-term strategy of your action plan. You have to stop your avoidance behaviors. Remember, Mike, avoiding speaking English in professional settings for an entire year.
Yeah, the worst thing you could do.
Avoidance is the most dangerous thing you can do to your fluency. Every single time you avoid a conversation, dodge a meeting, or stay quiet at a dinner party because you are scared of your English, you are training your amygdala. You are reinforcing the neurological pathway that says English equals danger. Avoidance equals survival.
And conversely, exposure trains the amygdala that English equals survivable. Every time you engage in a conversation, stumble through it, make grammatical mistakes, use a stalling phrase, but walk away physically unharmed, your brain learns.
It recalibrates.
It calibrates the threat level.
Yeah.
The alarm bells get significantly quieter the next time. This is exactly how you build long-term psychological resilience.
But to willingly expose yourself to that discomfort, we have to re-examine the social dynamic from the native listener's point of view, because as an English learner, you likely have a massive fundamental blind spot. You assume that the native speaker sitting across from you is meticulously scrutinizing your grammar, silently judging your accent, and quietly questioning your intelligence.
I know I felt that way. It's the language ego speaking loud and clear. But let's analyze why listeners actually feel the exact opposite. In reality, when a native speaker is listening to a non-native speaker navigate a complex topic, the primary emotions they feel are respect and admiration.
Exactly, admiration.
Why? Because attempting to communicate complex professional or deep personal ideas in a second or third language is inherently incredibly difficult, and it is inherently brave.
I want to make a definitive rule for your language journey. Imperfect and present is always unequivocally better than perfect and silent. The listener isn't grading your syntax with a red pen. They are trying to connect with your ideas.
They just want to talk to you.
Exactly. When they see you struggling to find a word and then you calmly use a phrase like, how do I put this? They don't think you are incompetent. They interpret your pauses as thoughtful, deep engagement. They see you working incredibly hard to bridge a massive cultural and linguistic gap just to speak with them.
I want to push back on this just slightly, playing devil's advocate. What if I make a really, truly obvious, embarrassing mistake? What if I use the wrong word entirely and accidentally say something funny or nonsensical like Mike did? Doesn't that make me look foolish?
No, it makes you look human. It shows vulnerability. It is an act of courage. Every single broken sentence, every mispronounced word is a conscious, brave choice you are making to connect with the world beyond the comfortable borders of your first
I
language.
love that.
It is a feature of your global identity to be incredibly proud of, not a bug that you need to hide or apologize for. When you reframe your mistakes as a concrete evidence of your courage and your active neurological growth, your overall language mindset transforms entirely. You stop fighting the language and you start using it.
That is the ultimate goal. The mechanics we discussed today, the 10 stalling phrases, the 15-minute mirror drills, the 30-day habit trackers, are just the temporary scaffolding to support your courage until the automaticity takes over and your brain stops sounding the alarm.
Let's bring everything together. We have covered incredible ground today. When you walk into that networking event or that boardroom and your mind goes blank, remember your brain is not broken and it has absolutely nothing to do with your intelligence.
Right.
You are experiencing an amygdala hijack caused by a perceived social threat to your ego, compounded by the immense cognitive overload of translating and self-monitoring, which spikes your affective filter and temporarily shuts down your working memory.
We dismantled the toxic IQ myth by proving that fluency is simply a physical motor skill built through millions of repetitions. Your action plan is concrete.
Yeah.
You'll stop avoiding the discomfort because discomfort is the literal feeling of your brain growing new neural pathways.
Yes.
You will use the daily 15-minute drills to build motor memory for your stalling phrases.
You will use phrases like, let me rephrase that. That's a tough one. And bear with me. I want to get this right. To take complete ownership of your pauses, command authority in professional settings, and biologically calm your nervous system in real time.
You will track your progress on low-stakes phone calls, and you will systematically lower your social anxiety by proving to your amygdala that you are safe.
And this all builds up over time.
It does. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final provocative paradigm shift to ponder as you go about your week. We spend so much of our time, our energy, and our daily anxiety trying to sound perfectly, flawlessly native.
Right, the perfection trap.
We want to be seamless to impress the people around us. But what if your vulnerability, the visible, authentic, messy effort you put into speaking an imperfect second language, is actually the exact thing that makes you more human, more trustworthy, and more compelling to the people you are talking to? What if your struggle is your greatest asset in building real, lasting human connection?
Your voice matters. The ideas in your head are valuable. Don't let the biological fear of a grammar mistake silence you.
Take the tools from this deep dive, stay brave, keep tracking your progress, and whatever you do, keep talking, especially when it's hard. We'll see you on the next deep dive.